The last time I did a marathon, I started with a franchise that has some of the longest games that I've ever played, and that entire endeavor took around 7 months to complete. And I told myself that if I was ever going to do another marathon like that again, I'd do a series with significantly smaller games. So I'm diving into the classic games of the franchise that got me into gaming, Mario. And oh my god, what an adventure I've been on in the last couple of months. I like Luigi better, I'm keeping the Luigi hat.
It's common to hear that someone's first Mario game wasn't a mainline entry, right? Because the very first Mario game I played was Mario Kart 64. My aunt and uncle had an N64, and whenever my siblings and I would visit, we'd be playing either that or the original Super Smash Bros. I wouldn't come to possess an N64 of my own until I was in my mid-20s, so I wouldn't get a Mario game to call mine until my dad bought our family a Platinum Nintendo GameCube that had Mario Kart Double Dash bundled with it. From there, my first proper Mario game was Super Mario Sunshine a few years later, and my first 2D Mario game was New Super Mario Bros. But the original Super Mario Bros.? I can't exactly remember my first experience with the game, but the earliest I can remember is playing it via the Masterpieces mode in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. My first full playthrough to the end without warp zones wasn't until last year, so now with this retrospective, I'm curious to see how much my thoughts on the game have changed, if they even have in the first place.
But before we talk about the games themselves, I think it's important that we discuss how the franchise was originally conceived. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Super Mario Bros. Retrospective.
Back in the late 70s and early 80s, video games took on a much more simplistic form. This was the time where games like Pac-Man and Galaga were seen as revolutionary. Nintendo was one of the many companies that was developing early arcade games, and the one that would change their fate forever was Radarscope. This game was considered a commercial failure, so Nintendo was doing their best to round up talent to create games that would help the company avoid destruction. This led to the young Shigeru Miyamoto being the lead game designer for Nintendo's next big arcade title, which at first it was initially planned as a game based on the Popeye comic strip, but with some more work and the late and great Gunpei Yokoi as project supervisor, Donkey Kong was born. In the game, you took control of the character known as Jumpman, who could jump, and was a man, as you maneuvered him to rescue his girlfriend Lady, wrong picture, from the clutches of Donkey Kong. After the game's success, Miyamoto wanted to explore the character of Jumpman further, and soon after his name was changed from Jumpman to Mario, being named after the landlord of Nintendo of America at the time, Mario Segale. Mario's next appearance was in the arcade game Mario Bros. This game had Mario clearing out the sewers of crabs and turtles along with his younger twin brother Luigi. And aside from maybe a small reference here or there, this is the only fucking plumbing these two will ever do in their career. Mario Bros. Was released at an interesting time, as during 1983, the game industry was sort of dying in the West thanks to the video game crash of 1983. Due to a flooded console market, mainly thanks to Atari, some competition from home computers, and a loss of publishing control thanks to Activision, the value of video games dropped to an all-time low. But thanks to the Nintendo Entertainment System sneaking into people's houses after being advertised as a toy, Nintendo released Super Mario Bros. In 1985, and from that moment, the world caught Mario fever and the video game industry was rejuvenated, leading Nintendo to be a household name even after 40 years. Forever will I consider Rob the Robot the Trojan horse of Nintendo.
40 years is a long time, and if something like Pac-Man can remain that timeless for that long, can the same be said for the original Super Mario Bros., especially now that we've had so many newer 2D Mario games coming out in the past several decades? Well, let's find out.
As an NES game for the mid-80s, there isn't much of a story to cover unless you're looking in the manual. Many NES games follow this approach, long before the era of fan wikis or totally accurate search engines. After the events of the original Mario Bros., Mario and Luigi find themselves traveling through a pipe that leads them to the Mushroom Kingdom, a land filled with mushrooms and fish. The kingdom finds itself under an invasion from the Koopa King Bowser, who uses his magic to transform the residents of the kingdom into brick blocks and stones. A little morbid, considering what you do in the game, but I'm just gonna sweep all that under the rug and pretend not to think about it. Bowser also kidnaps Princess Peach Toadstool, the only person in the kingdom who can reverse the spell.
Just an experiment.
Once Mario and Luigi learn of the news, they set out on a quest to rescue Peach, stop Bowser, and save the kingdom. And I shit you not, Mario plots will not get any more complicated than that unless you're playing a sports spin-off or a Mario RPG. But you're never really playing a Mario game for the story, because the gameplay is what has primarily been bringing people back since 1985. While Donkey Kong is widely considered the industry's first platformer, although looking back you could probably give that title to Space Panic, Super Mario Bros. Is the first traditional platformer as we know them today. You take Mario through 4 different levels per world as you guide him through obstacles filled with platforms to jump on, enemies to defeat, and secrets to find. You move from left to right and jump, and duck if you're big. That's about it. Mario's running speed is a decent pace and he has a comfortable jump height, but his jumps can feel a bit stiff at times. There are also instances I hit the jump button only for Mario to run into a pit or off a platform like a dope, and that's mainly because he carries a lot of momentum when he's running. Precision isn't very precise at times, but Mario's control is still plenty manageable if you're careful enough. You can only really move forward. If you try to backtrack, the screen will prevent you from doing so. So I hope you didn't want to go back and hit that block that possibly had a star in it. So with your moves, you just need to guide Mario to the end of the level by hitting this flagpole. Along the way you can collect coins, which collecting 100 of will net you an extra life. If you lose all of your lives, it's game over, and you have to restart the game from the very beginning. You'll travel through some typical ground levels, the underground where everyone and everything is navy blue, mushroom platforms, treetops, underwater segments, and one of Bowser's many castles. Each level will offer something different, whether it be the arrangements of the platforms you jump on or how enemies are set up. Every 4th level is in a castle, and after beating it, you move on to the next world. There are a few times that levels will offer a different backdrop aside from your blue sky, but it doesn't happen that often. You'll find these giant green pipes all over the place that more often than not act like platforms and obstacles, but you can enter some of them to find secret areas with lots of coins to collect. Or sometimes you can find special pipes that will let you skip ahead to other worlds, and utilizing those secret exits can let you beat the game in less than 10 minutes. And Mario's got the moves to do it all, but he ain't winning any awards in endurance. If he takes any hit at all, he's dead. Luckily, there are a few power-ups hidden in these blocks scattered around the levels, the most iconic, of course, being the Super Mushroom, turning Mario into Super Mario. He can jump a little bit higher and he has an extra hit point, giving a little more leeway when he's tracking through the game's challenges. There's also the Fire Flower that transforms Super Mario into Fire Mario, not only giving the Talataniano some new drip and the Super Mushroom's insurance coverage, but also lets him shoot fireballs that can take out most enemies in a single hit. Annoyingly, if you get hit as Fire Mario, you shrink right back down to Danny DeVito size, which thankfully later games would change that, but it is the first game in the series, so I'll cut it some slack. You can also find hidden Starmen in most levels that will make Mario invincible for a short time, and he can defeat any enemy he touches. Yeah, suck my balls or whatever. I was actually kind of surprised at how many of these I found during my playthrough, and more often than not, they're placed in areas that have a long line of enemies to plow through, which for an NES game this early on, there's actually a bit of diversity here. Not a lot, but again, impressive for the time. First off, we have the Goomba, the very definition of grunt, charging right into Mario's knees, but they're easily taken out by a stomp. They also have telekinetic powers that they never use outside of baseball, party games, and car racing. Then there are the Koopa Troopas that come in a few varieties. All of them retreat into their shells when they're jumped on, and then you can kick them into other enemies, or yourself if you're a dipshit. I'm a dipshit. The green Koopas will walk forward like Goombas, but the red ones will turn around when they reach a ledge, making them a bit trickier to dodge. The Koopa Paratroopas will hop around the level, but the red ones will move back and forth in a straight line. Buzzy Beetles are essentially Koopa Troopas that can't be taken out with a Fire Flower. Piranha Plants will stick their heads out of pipes to chomp your ass, but you could just stand on or next to the pipe to keep them away. Bullet Bills will just get fired at you either out of the Bill Blasters or from off screen, right where you need to land in most cases. Lakitu flies in the higher part of the screen, dropping Spinies on you, the latter of which can only be killed with a Fire Flower or Starman. The underwater levels will have you dealing with Cheep Cheep swimming around, but in some levels they'll jump from the waters to suck your face. Bloopers are the trickier enemies underwater, but thankfully the Fire Flower makes them a non-issue. The Hammer Brother is the hardest enemy to fight in the game. They shuffle back and forth, tossing hammers at you with an occasional jump here and there. More often than not, there's 2 of them paired together, but this fucker in the final level will test your patience. Not only is he placed in the last room of the game, he's right in front of a large pit you need to jump over in order to get to Bowser. And let me tell you, it's anything but easy to kill Hammer Bro by jumping on him, because shit like this will happen to you and it's annoying as fuck. Speaking of Bowser, he's the boss of every castle stage, and in order to beat him, you either need to run under or jump over him to trigger this axe that will destroy the drawbridge and send him to a fiery grave. At first he'll only jump and spit fireballs, but by later castles he'll start chucking hammers at you. It's like a Hammer Brother on crack. If you kill Bowser with the Fire Flower in the first 7 worlds, you'll discover that they're all regular enemies transformed into Bowser with magic. Getting to the Bowser encounters is the hardest part because some of these castles can be bastards. I'm not a fan at all of the maze castles. It feels less like a puzzle and more like trial and error. I didn't mind the route you had to take for the last castle since that one feels a bit more comprehensive, I guess. It was just hard to tell what I was doing wrong in the earlier mazes compared to this one. Once you beat the game, Peach will offer up a second quest where all the Goombas are replaced by Buzzy Beetles and both they and Koopas move a bit faster. If you have a second controller, you can select the 2-player mode where player 2 takes control of Luigi. He plays exactly like Mario, so there's no advantage to differentiate the two, only the skill of each player. I think that the game has aged well in most regards, but one thing that has annoyed me more than anything else is Mario's hurtbox. What I mean is the area around Mario that defines where he can get hit by enemies. This game's hitboxes and hurtboxes are fucking weird, man. There will be times I jump on an enemy only to die or get hit by a hammer that didn't even touch me. Most of the time it feels completely random when it happens, and other times I'll jump on enemies just fine, only for the next Koopa I jump towards accept me into his loving family. There are also a few parts of levels that repeat enemy layouts or have nothing but enemies to avoid, but there wasn't any moment where I felt overwhelmed by them. Graphically, this game looks weird in comparison to other Mario games from the NES, but it all looks weird in an iconic looking way. And as limited and repetitive as the soundtrack can be, it's still great. I can't think of how many times the overworld, underground, underwater, and invincibility themes have been remixed, rearranged, or reorchestrated over the last 40 years. The original Super Mario Bros. Remains a classic with some solid level design, iconic music, and a structure that has stood the test of time. It may be a bit rough around the edges nowadays, especially in comparison to its many sequels, but I still think it's a game worth checking out, especially since this is one of the many early Nintendo franchise games that doesn't suffer too heavily from first game syndrome. But if I'm going back to the original Super Mario Bros., I'm playing the arcade version, versus Super Mario Bros. It's pretty much a patched version of the NES game released in arcades. Some levels are replaced with the harder versions from later worlds, and a few enemies and obstacles were shifted around to give more challenge and to prevent things like the one-up trick. And for some reason Mario's Fire Flower has a yellowish hue to it, and it looks really odd to me. Why am I pissed? But I can say that despite its flaws, Super Mario Bros. Was a relatively enjoyable time for me. It was a smooth experience all in all. Unlike some games, it would have been dumb not to make a sequel to Super Mario Bros. The game sold boatloads thanks to being bundled with the NES. So would Nintendo expand on the formula and make a truly great sequel? No. In 1986, Nintendo would release Super Mario Bros. 2 for the Famicom in Japan, but when the game was on its way to being localized, Nintendo of America rejected the game coming to the US because of its difficulty. What? Were they saying the game was just too hard, or were they calling American players pussies? My feelings on the game aside, I do think it's a really stupid reason for not localizing a game. But at the same time, I entirely agree with them not releasing the game at that time, and you'll find out why soon enough. The game wouldn't see any sort of localization until Super Mario All-Stars on the SNES in 1993 under the name Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. I think a more appropriate title would be Super Mario Bros. Go Fuck Yourself, or Super Mario Bros. In a Trunk Off a Cliff. There was also the version found in Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, dubbed Super Mario Bros. For Super Players, but I'll talk about that later. We wouldn't get the original version of Lost Levels until its release on the Wii's Virtual Console. But like the other games for this video, I'll be playing the version on the NES Switch Online service. In terms of story, well, according to the Japanese manual, this takes place in an alternate timeline that runs concurrently with the original game, with the exact same plot. We just got to the second game and we're already in the multiverse. I'm so tired. Bowser kidnaps Peach, turns the Toads into bricks, and now Mario and Luigi have to go save her.
This counts.
Well, in terms of gameplay, it's pretty much just like the original Super Mario Bros. Guide Mario to the flagpole, defeat Bowser in each castle, listen to Toad tell you to piss off, and do it 7 more times until you save Peach. The first thing I noticed when playing this game was the higher amount of detail. The ground actually looks like dirt this time, and for some reason a lot of the elements in the background have faces, like the clouds and the horsetail plants. Do you think they're aware of the sins of man? I do appreciate the text having a drop shadow now, which makes things a bit easier to read. The music is still the same as the first game, so my opinions from that part of the video are unchanged. When you start the game up, you'll notice that there's no longer a 2-player mode like the original. Instead, you have options for a Mario game and a Luigi game. Mario plays just like he did in the original game, while Luigi has a higher jump and piss-poor traction. You're not playing as Luigi in this game. I repeat, you are not playing as Luigi in this game. You wanna know why? Because this game fucking hates you. Lost Levels is by far the hardest 2D Mario game in the franchise, and not because of there being any fun or fair difficulty, but because the game requires you to pull off some super precise jumps to finish each stage, and the enemy placement is just dickish. It doesn't even feel like a natural progression from the first game. Like, if the game continued after 8-4, this still wouldn't feel like a natural difficulty curve. Instead, they just took it and kicked that bitch into the atmosphere. There are a few new things here and there, like an enhanced version of the springs that shoot you into the air. You'll run into wind gusts in the later levels, which initially are fine to deal with, but when you have to start making precise jumps over pits onto enemies during a wind gust, I rage. Then there's a poison mushroom that does damage to Mario instead of powering him up. This is such a trollish thing to include because my first instinct when hitting a block and seeing a power-up is to jump up and grab it. They don't bring it back very often, but when it does return, it's made even more obvious that it's bad news. There were 2 new enemies introduced, but they're only new variants. Red piranha plants are a bit faster and can poke their head out when Mario stands next to a pipe, and bloopers now have variants that move in the sky. And for some reason, the Hammer Brothers decided to change things up a bit because whenever you run into one, they won't stop running after you. Like, the game is already hard enough and now you're throwing these dickheads at me? Some of these levels are just mean with the type of things you're expected to do. Like right here. There's no way for the player to know that they have to hit invisible blocks to make a platform to progress. The only time that was the thing in the first game was in the last level, but they hit you with that shit as soon as World 2! Then when you think they're safe, they pull it off again in World 5! This isn't a challenge, it's trial and error! How am I supposed to know that I have to jump onto these 2 blocks right here in 8-3 to make this big ass jump when everything looks the same as the fucking wall? The first 2 worlds don't have anything too infuriating, but it goes downhill when you get to World 3. Not so much the first 3 levels themselves, they're fine for the most part. It's when you get to the castle that things go downhill because this stupid maze shit is back. I'm not gonna beat around the bush, these are still terrible and they're even worse here. Then World 4 starts hitting you with literal leaps of faith onto paratroopas. The same control issues I had with the first game are back in full force, and while I didn't mind how it felt to move Mario around last time, it does begin to bother me when things get a little too involved for my taste. There are plenty of jumps in some of the castle levels that I should have made, but the game decided, nope. And it's shit like this that gave me a perfect excuse to use NSO's replay feature. Because if I had to play some of these levels over and over again, I'd go insane. Like, look at this shit, this is just brutal. Interestingly enough, Bowser's first family member appears in the form of this guy right here. Apparently this is Bowser's brother. He doesn't have a name, he's just Bowser's brother. I'm calling him Daryl. So if by some fucking miracle you make it to the end, the game will throw you into an extra World 9 with 1 life, which... oh wow, this is a mess.
Why is everything chrome?
Ironically, this world is a bit easier than World 9, aside from this part of the first level. And the final level is piss easy aside from... God, Daryl! I should also mention that after finishing World 9, you can begin to trek through Worlds A through D. At least you can for the All-Stars version. If you want to get to World A in the original Lost levels, you have to play through the game 8 times. Why? I think I'd rather go through the announcement of another Sticker Star sequel. If it wasn't obvious enough already, I think this game is a flaming ball of shit. The level design is too much of a difficulty spike, and despite any new elements that could enhance the formula, it doesn't change how much frustration I accumulate whenever I play this game. This was not the direction to go for a sequel to Super Mario Bros., and after playing it for a few times over the past few years, this is one Mario game I never want to play again. And if there is anybody out there who does like Lost Levels, that's great, more power to you. But I can't fucking stand this game. I just think it's horribly designed and it's just not a fun game to play. Aside from the original release, there were 2 other versions that Americans had access to. The first, of course, being the version found in Super Mario All-Stars, but we'll get to that later. Then there was Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, a from-the-ground-up remake of the original Super Mario Bros. And the Lost Levels with some additional content here and there, released in 1999 on the Game Boy Color. The physics were recreated and the level design for both games is the same, but you can clearly see the biggest change, that being the screen crunch. They tried to accommodate for it thanks to the screen being slightly shifted to give the player a better view of what's up ahead, but that's not going to save you from the literal leaps of faith you now have to make. But if you can get past it, it's still the original Super Mario Bros. There are some cool little additions like a world map and some new end screens and animations here and there. They've also added this You vs. Boo mode, where you race a Boo to the end of a level with these switcher blocks all over the place. I like this mode, but the problems that were prevalent in this version of the game felt even more prevalent here. I didn't spend too much time with this game since it's literally just the original game, and Lost Levels again. Hell, I didn't even bother playing Lost Levels on this version because fuck no! I'm not playing Lost Levels with screen crunch. Games like Mega Man and Bass and Sonic Genesis have taught me otherwise.
I probably should have said this earlier, but I'm not going to go over every single re-release of every single game in the series. Like, for real, do you want me to talk about the Virtual Console re-release of Super Mario Bros. On the Wii U? Anyway, did you know that they came out with a Mario Game & Watch?
So while the players in Japan were reconsidering their life choices with the original Super Mario Bros. 2, the West needed something to satiate the demand for more Mario, as Nintendo of America requested a more player-friendly game. That's where Doki Doki Panic comes into play, which was another game developed by a Miyamoto-led team that also involved Kensuke Tanabe. Nintendo of America president at the time, Minoru Arakawa, requested that Doki Doki Panic be given a conversion into a Super Mario Bros. Game, and the 4 main characters, who were a small family, were replaced by Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Toad. And with some graphical changes here and there, and the addition of a run button, thank God, Super Mario Bros. 2 was released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1988. Funnily enough, this game was re-released in Japan under the title of Super Mario USA. Imagine popping this into your Famicom in the early 90s only to discover you've been duped into buying a second copy of Doki Doki Panic. The story is about as simple as the previous game, though. Mario has a dream one night of him finding a staircase to the world of Subcon, where the kingdom is under the turmoil of the villainous war, long before his days of being sacrificed in a sacrilegious ceremony. He wakes up from this dream and, along with Luigi, Toad, and Princess Peach, find a cave that leads to the very same staircase that leads to Subcon. The group makes it their mission to travel the worlds of this new land and stop warp once and for all. And that's about it. So we're not in the Mushroom Kingdom anymore, and you can already tell this isn't the kind of Mario game you know from last time. There are no blocks or anything holding power-ups. Instead, there are all these plants that you can pluck out of the ground in order to throw at enemies. And enemies can't be taken out just by jumping on them. You either gotta hit them with a vegetable or hit them with each other. In the end, it's not a big deal, and there is some sort of satisfaction in chucking enemies at each other. It's kinda like the same satisfaction I get when chucking pots at enemies in Link to the Past. Sometimes you'll find these potion bottles that you can throw onto the ground in order to spawn a door. Going into these doors will lead you to Subspace, where any plants you pluck come out as coins that you can use in a slot machine at the end of the level to get extra lives. If you place the potion down in the right spot, a mushroom will spawn, which will give you an extra hit point. But trying to put the potion in the right spot to get the damn thing to spawn is a challenge in of itself. Fucking damn it. Yeah, you actually have hit points in this game, and when you're on your last one, you'll shrink just like the first game. One thing that drives me up a wall though is this game's knockback. If you have more than 2 health points, you'll get hit with this floaty-ass knockback that sends you flying. It's just really off-putting and leaves me disoriented, especially if it's one of those levels with the long vertical shafts. If you take out enough enemies, every once in a while a heart will float up from the bottom of the screen that'll restore your health. The floating cherries will spawn in a Starman after you collect 5 of them. This is nice, but it sucks getting a Starman when you've either taken out all the enemies in a room, or you're stuck in a long vertical section like this. Other than that, there aren't any power-ups in this game. Like, you can pull bombs out from the ground to break blocks and stopwatches to freeze time, and then there's also but there's nothing permanent you can acquire like a fire flower or something like that. You can also get plants stuck to your head. This makes me a god among men in a culture somewhere on this planet. So you got 4 playable characters that you can choose from: Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Toad, each coming with the same core moveset with slight tweaks to make each stand out. Mario's the all-rounder, everything about him is average, and that's A-OK. Luigi has his higher jump and buttery feet from lost levels, but he still feels a bit more comfortable to control here than there. Princess Peach is the weakest character of the 4, as she takes the longest to pluck vegetables from the ground, but she also has a float ability that suspends her in the air for a short time. Whenever I'm struggling with a platform obstacle, I usually switch to Princess Peach. She's great for newcomers to platformers. Toad is the fastest and strongest of all the characters, but his jump is nothing to write home about. He's good for boss fights, but I still think I ended up using him the least. Each character also comes with this new charge jump. By pressing and holding down on the D-pad for a short time, you can charge up a higher jump to shoot up to areas just out of reach. While every character can get mileage out of it, with Peach it's just flat out disgusting, and it's the main reason why I used her more than the others. As one of your selected characters, you need to make it to the end of the level to take on Birdo. Then you take the orb she holds to enter this bird mouth to move on.
I gotta stop smoking pot.
The levels in this game compared to the first 2 are definitely a bit more varied, with some different biomes and themed obstacles. There are 7 worlds with 3 levels apiece aside from the final world. You'll fight Birdo in the first 2 levels of each world with a proper boss fight at the end of the 3rd. Then you can move on to the next world. So since we're in a new world in Subcon, there are no enemies from the original Super Mario Bros. Instead we have a bunch of new ones that, honest to God, kinda suck. More often than not, the enemies are only a challenge because of their placement rather than what they actually do. Mainly in the case of enemies like Sniffits and Panzers. The other enemies just walk around, and aside from a few of them, their designs are very basic and unappealing. Like, Phanto isn't even scary or creepy because he'll stop chasing you if you drop the key that you stole from his room. He's only really a challenge to dodge in sections that you can't really drop the key in. I will give them some credit though, most of these enemies will become mainstays in the wider Mario series like Shy Guys, Ninjas, Sniffits, Pokies, and Bob-ombs. The levels in Mario 2 USA definitely feel a bit more diverse, and I do enjoy how much verticality some of them can have, at least until I get to the desert world where I gotta start pulling up all this damn sand. Each world does have some elements that make them stand out, like waterfalls in the first world or the water spouts and whales in later levels. Things start off calm and fun in the beginning, but much like the enemies, levels can get pretty boring, mostly from World 5 and 6. This game really didn't leave me with that big of an impression at first, and I had to go back and look over my footage multiple times to think of anything to say for these worlds, and yeah, I got nothing. I mean, this one level that takes you above and below ground is kinda cool, but it's not that amazing. And then the game remembered, oh yeah, I gotta get a difficulty curve in there, and that's how we got World 7. This place... fuck this place. Long hallways with conveyor belts, Birdos in places where you don't want Birdos to be, and where the hell am I going? I'll give the game some credit though, it completely shits on the original game in terms of boss fights. Birdo is there as the constant mini-boss, and she'll throw in new attacks as you progress. As for the actual bosses, first up there's Mauser, who does this funny little trot when chucking bombs at you. You fight him twice. Next up, there's this three-headed snake who at first I thought was my man motherfucking Gleeok, baby! But no, this is Triclide. He'll shoot fireballs at you, so you need to set up a barrier with these mushrooms, and like Mauser, you also fight him twice. Claw Grip was a boss added to this version of the game, as in the original Doki Doki Panic, you fought Mauser for a third time. Like damn, he was really wanting some screen time. But Claw Grip isn't too hard, he just shuffles and throws what I pray are rocks at you instead of... Never mind. Ragai is probably the hardest of the bosses, at least the second phase is. Starting out he's fine, but things go downhill once he splits up into these tiny little fuckers. Every time you take one of them out, the others start jumping a bit farther and faster, so things start getting a bit tricky. Fuck. Wart himself isn't too bad actually, literally all he does is spit bubbles at you. The challenge comes from actually doing damage to him as you have to wait for him to open his mouth to toss a veggie into, which you get from this thing right here, the Dream Machine, which is apparently the source of Wart's power? I couldn't even begin to express how much of a dumb fuck that would make Wart, but we still have 2 more games to look at and I'm ready to move on. With Wart defeated, Subcon is saved, and as the citizens of the land ship Wart off to his cameo in Link's Awakening, it's revealed that the whole game was in Mario's dream and that none of it ever happened. Fucking cop-outs. The game does look nice to the NES, and the sprite work completely shits on the original Super Mario Bros. The game's soundtrack has some good themes, but I think this game's music gets as repetitive as Mario 1's tunes, and in some cases it gets even more grating. Honestly, I don't know if there's any more that I can say that I haven't said, mainly because I just don't like this game that much. I think that it has a lot of good ideas, and it deserves its place in the franchise. Having multiple playable characters is a nice addition, and I don't think the game is too easy or too hard. But this game just leaves me wanting something else. Super Mario Bros. 2 is a perfectly fine game, but I don't think that it's that good or interesting of a Mario game, at least for the original version. But it was just what Nintendo needed to feed the hungry audiences of the United States who wanted more Mario, and expectations for the next numbered entry were set. So while Doki Doki Panic got its Mario makeover here in the West, what was the main team in Japan working on? So by the time that the United States got Super Mario Bros. 2 USA in 1988, Japan was already getting the next numbered entry on the Famicom, Super Mario Bros. 3. The game wouldn't be released in the US until 1990. So what took so long? Well, due to the combination of a ROM chip shortage in 1988 and Nintendo preparing the release of Mario 2 USA, Nintendo was prevented from releasing some NES games according to their original release windows. And according to Nintendo Power, the affected games were Super Mario Bros. 3 and, believe it or not, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. This delay prompted a huge marketing opportunity as the company was approached by Universal Studios' Tom Pollock about creating a video game movie, which would eventually lead to this forever iconic scene in the 1989 movie The Wizard.
So I give you Super Mario Brothers 3!
Poor PAL region though, they didn't get this game until 1991, and by that time, the world was already moving on to the Super Nintendo. It's been 35 years since the game's release here in the US, but does it still hold up in good regards? Well, we better start with that story. Thanks to Mario and Luigi's efforts in the first game, peace has returned to the Mushroom Kingdom. However, all is not well in the rest of the Mushroom World. Bowser has set his Koopalings to the 7 kingdoms in order to steal each of the king's magic wands and stir chaos in each region. So Peach sends the Mario Bros out to take on the Koopalings and restore the Mushroom World's peace.
Wait, so Peach hasn't been kidnapped? Huh. I could have sworn that... Never mind.
So we got 7 worlds to go through once again, but unlike the first and second game, each world has anywhere from 8 to 12 levels each. Levels unfortunately don't have checkpoints anymore, which I kind of forgot to talk about with the other games, but I guess to compensate for that, levels in Mario 3 are actually pretty short in comparison to levels in Mario 2. These levels last long enough to leave a lasting impression, but they're short enough to keep the pacing up. New to the type of levels is auto-scrollers, and I'm gonna be blunt, auto-scrollers are terrible in any video game. Like, these are genuinely the worst levels in the game. They're slow, they're boring, and any interesting level design is made unappealing instantly to me. Selecting a level is now done through the world map, and if the opportunity presents itself, you could actually skip levels or complete them out of order. There will be a few worlds where you only really have one path forward, but you never actually have to do every level in this game, and that can lead to some nice replayability. Scattered around each world are these toad houses that have 3 chests with a random item in each. It's completely random what you get most of the time, but these items will end up going into Mario or Luigi's inventory. The Italian Stallions can hold up to 28 items altogether. and depending on what you get, you can either use them as power-ups in the levels themselves, or to get past obstacles on the world map. Mario's control in this game completely shits on the control of its predecessor, although I do think his acceleration in the air is just a bit too quick. But it's still better than the older games, that's the most important thing. Mario also has this new P meter that builds up on energy as you run, and when it's maxed out, Mario will run at full speed and jump higher than normal. This makes the gameplay kind of addicting at times, and it makes me want to complete levels that much faster. But more often than not, my need for speed leads to my death, so be careful. You also now have the ability to pick up and throw Koopa shells. This is a great addition, as now I can either knock out a line of annoying enemies, or throw it into a group of blocks to get a ton of coins, or find some secrets. Levels and mechanics are built off of what was previously established in Mario 1, so item blocks and brick blocks are back, along with the old reliable Super Mushroom and Fire Flower. Although in this game, when you get hit as Fire Mario, you go right back to Super Mario. I guess Mario got a better insurance policy or something between games. Once again, the level diversity is cranked up considerably, much like Super Mario Bros. 2, with each world being themed around a particular biome. There's the Grassland, which is your typical Mario fare, and it also throws in slopes that you can slide down. Desert Hill has plenty of sinking sand pits to stall Mario's progress. Oceanside that has quite a number of water levels and fish. Anyway, there's also Big Island, where all the enemies are big. Wow. Then there's the Sky, which has its levels split up into two areas, being the ground level and the sky itself. There's also the Boot. Yay, Boot. Iceland is the hardest world in the game because of the slippery ice sliding physics, and I never had a good time with any of these levels. And then there's just one level that has no snow in it for some reason. Great job here, fellas. Pipe Maze wasn't exactly the origin of a lot of the drug-related Mario jokes, but it definitely contributed. I mean, for fuck's sake, the world theme sounds like something you could listen to after eating an edible.
Hey, Tabby, can we run a few sets? I got a tournament coming. What are you doing? Dude, do you ever think... You gotta stop smoking pot.
Along with the return of the old power-ups, there are also plenty of new ones for Mario to get this time. There's the Raccoon Leaf, which lets Mario fly for a brief period of time when he has a full P meter, and he can also swing his tail to defeat enemies. The swing is kinda slow though, and I always end up running my ass into enemies before the damn swing comes out. There's also the Frog Suit, which lets Mario jump much higher, but he hops everywhere, so you can't build up your meter at all. In exchange, the Frog Suit makes Mario a fantastic swimmer, and turns every water level in the game into a complete breeze. The Raccoon Leaf has a few variations in the P-Wing and the Tanuki Suit. The P-Wing turns Mario into Raccoon Mario and gives him a permanent full P meter for the whole level, letting Mario fly over everything. So if there's a level that's giving you trouble, this will be your best friend. The Tanuki Suit is essentially the same as the Raccoon Leaf, but by pressing down on the D-pad in mid-air, Mario can transform into a statue and defeat any enemies beneath him. Japanese mythology is weird. The Tanuki Suit is one of the rarest items in the game, so make sure you save it for special occasions, and the same goes for the Hammer Brother Suit. Aside from giving Mario an instant spray tan, he can chuck hammers that can take out any enemy in the game. And I mean any enemy. It's broken, but to compensate, it's very rare. There are also those map-exclusive items that I mentioned earlier. There's the Cloud that lets you skip over levels, the Music Box that can put wandering Hammer Brothers to sleep, a Hammer that lets you break rock piles in your path, and the game-exclusive Warp Whistle that is straight up, it just lets you skip to other worlds. There's only 3 of them, but if you have at least 2 of them, you can skip to the end of the game just like that. And I don't even know how many people found out about these back in the day. Was one of them because of the wizard? I never watched the movie. Sometimes you'll find these playing card icons on the map that will lead you to a card matching minigame, which can net you some basic items, coins, and 1-ups. You can also find these icons that put you in a slot roulette minigame that can net you some extra lives, which is always nice. And if you're extremely lucky, you'll find the treasure ship, which has a lot of coins for you to collect. But getting the damn thing to appear is the real challenge. You have to meet a very strict set of criteria for it to spawn, so more likely than not, you're only going to have it spawn on complete fucking accident. Your end goal for each world is to take care of each fortress level, then make your way to the castles where Toad will tell you that the king has been transformed. Then you jump onto one of Bowser's airships to take on the Koopalings to get the magic wands back. Each fight with the Koopalings is kind of a joke. The only ones that feel any different are Lemmy thanks to the bouncy balls he throws out, and Wendy with her magic rings. But with each one, it's 3 stomps and they're dead. And with each one returned to their respective king, Peach will send Mario a letter with an item and some advice. Though sometimes she'll give you advice about levels you've already done in previous worlds. Thanks for that, Peach. Once you conquer the 7th airship, Bowser will send you a letter stating that while you were dicking around, he kidnapped the princess and is holding her in the Dark Land.
My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined.
Honestly though, Darkland isn't that bad of a final area if we're being perfectly honest. If you saved enough of them, you can P-wing across the airship side-scroller stages, and the main platform stages aren't too difficult, and that does help me segue into my biggest problem with Super Mario Bros. 3. Its difficulty looks like a cardiac monitor. The difficulty doesn't scale naturally in comparison to other platformers or even other Mario games. World 3 is much harder compared to World 4 or 5, and World 6 is the hardest world in the game, way harder than World 7 or World 8. That's not to say that it's the worst thing ever, but it's extremely noticeable to me. The graphics for Mario 3 blow Mario 1 and 2 out of the damn water. You can actually see what each sprite is supposed to be, and the color palette is very pleasant on the gaze. I don't know why this blank bar is prominently on the left side. It's not as bad when the background is black, but for the brighter backgrounds, it's really distracting. The music is also a significant step up in comparison to Mario 1 and Mario 2. Each world map has their own music, there's now 2 main level themes with the grand and athletic themes, and all of it is just so catchy. Bowser's Castle can be a bit of a labyrinth at times, but honestly I'd say the fortress beforehand is harder. Bowser of course makes his grand return in the final room, and this time instead of having to chop the bridge down with an axe, the motherfucker will try to ass stomp you, so just use his heavyweight build against him and watch him drop. And this, kids, is why you don't throw out down B in neutral. And with that, the princess is rescued, the day is saved, and Super Mario Bros. 3 is complete. It's a damn good game. Great level design, great music. Mario 3 easily takes the title as the best Mario game on the NES, defeating the greats like Mario's Missing and Mario's Time Machine. So if you're looking for a platform from the NES era, try out Super Mario Bros. 3. But none of the games we've talked about today even compare to the first Mario game on the Super Nintendo. So by the time Mario 3 was released, the Super Mario Bros. Franchise was a worldwide obsession, and with the previously mentioned title selling gangbusters on the NES, Nintendo was ready to go all out with the next entry on the upcoming Super Nintendo. Actually, to experiment, they ended up porting Mario 3 to the new system, but felt like it was too much of the same thing, even with the updated colors and sprites. When speaking about the next 2D Mario game, Miyamoto had said that he wanted Mario to have a dinosaur companion as far back as the original game, but couldn't do so because of system limitations. Takashi Tezuka had designer Shigefumi Hino create a dinosaur design based on some drawings Miyamoto had on his desk during Mario 3's development, and after a tweak to the design after being dubbed too realistic, they finally settled on the design for Mario's new buddy. This entry was about to release in a unique time period, as not only was it coming out as a launch title for the Super Nintendo, but at least here in America, it was released right in the middle of the ongoing console wars between Nintendo and Sega, as the latter's Sonic the Hedgehog was exploding in popularity. I'll get to you at some point, you blue fuck.
So we are on the 4th entry of a franchise in a 5-year period. So what did Nintendo do to shake the formula up this time?
So the story for Mario World is Bowser kidnaps Peach.
Well, that didn't take long.
Mario, Luigi, and Peach end up taking a break at Dinosaur Island, and while the brothers leave the princess unattended and out in the open, she's captured by Bowser. Fucking morons. A short time before, Bowser and his forces secretly invaded Dinosaur Island to reassemble their forces, trapping Yoshi and his friends in eggs to remove all opposition. So now Mario, Luigi, and their new pal Yoshi make it their duty to travel this Super Mario World to rescue Yoshi's friends and save Peach from Bowser. Again. Right when you start the game, you'll see a similar world map to that of Mario 3, but unlike that game, Mario World's levels are all interconnected with each other. So for example, once you're done with the fortress level in the first world, you can walk straight into World 2. Interestingly enough, aside from Yoshi's Island and a few other areas, all the worlds in this game are named after food. There's the Donut Plains, the Vanilla Dome, the Cheese and Butter Bridges, the Soda Lake, Cookie Mountain, and Chocolate Island. The Forest of Illusion is pretty self-explanatory, and the Valley of Bowser is exactly what you think it is. So yeah, there's a lot of world to get through, but Mario is more than up to the task this time around. Right out of the gate, you'll notice that Mario is an absolute joy to control in this game. His weight, his speed, the momentum of his jumps, it all culminates into what is largely considered the best controlling Mario in any Mario game. There's a certain amount of precision I can pull off with this game that I couldn't do in any other Mario game before or for the longest time after, but we'll talk about that game another day. It's not just his movement though, Mario also has a few other abilities for his base kit. He can still pick up and throw Koopa shells, but this time Mario can chuck them straight up into the air to hit blocks or take out annoying enemies. He's also got this spin jump that can break through certain blocks that either block alternate pathways or hidden goodies, and in some instances, it can one-shot certain enemies. Unfortunately, while Mario's movement has damn near been perfected, the same can't be said for the lineup of power-ups. Sad to say, but none of the new items introduced in Mario 3 make a return in this game, which is a shame, but hey, at least the Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Starman are all still here. And while at first that sounds lame, you won't even think about the old power-ups once you get your hands on the Cape Feather, the god amongst Mario power-ups. Remember the Super Leaf from Mario 3? This is that on performance enhancers. Once you're at full running speed, you can leap high into the air and start flying. And if you press back on the D-pad in the right rhythm, you can fly across the entire level. Holding down the jump button will slow Mario's descent, and pressing the run button will do this little cape twirl that you can spam to make yourself damn near invincible. This is by far the most busted power-up in the franchise, and while you can't abuse the flight in every level, there will be times it feels utterly game-breaking. I guess I should also talk about the P-Balloon that inflates Mario up and lets him float around the stage for a brief period. I just don't like it because you're left utterly defenseless while using it, and also because of one little level later in the game, but again, we'll talk about that later. Then there's Yoshi, who may as well be a glorified power-up. You could ride Yoshi around and have him eat a shit ton of stuff, some of which he'll swallow whole, and some in which he'll hold in his mouth for a while before swallowing it. The biggest example being Koopa Shells. When Yoshi eats certain Koopa Shells, he'll gain a specific ability while doing so. Green shells can be shot back as normal, red shells can be spat out as fireballs, Yoshi can fly if he's holding a blue shell, and he can do this ground pound stomp if he's holding a yellow shell. Sometimes you'll even find shells that flash rainbow colors, and holding those will let Yoshi do everything at once. You can even find red, blue, and yellow Yoshis that can perform the corresponding ability with any Koopa shell. Yoshi is awesome, but unfortunately you can't take him inside the new ghost houses or fortress levels, which is a shame, but yeah, whatever. And if for some reason your skill level is so low, you can dismount Yoshi for an extra jump. You monster. So while the world diversity isn't as vast as what it was in Mario 3, the level design of Mario World makes up for it and then some. Aside from the returning auto-scrollers, these are some of the best levels that classic Mario has to offer. Part of that is thanks to the game's wonderful enemy diversity. There are a lot of enemies in this game, most returning from Mario 3, as well as there being plenty of new additions to the roster, with enemies like Fuzzies, Wigglers, Money Moles, and Bonsai Bills. I'm such a jumpy bitch lately. There's also this prick charging Chuck. He's got a few tricks up his sleeve, as in he can't decide what fucking sport he plays. He's got this clapping attack, he can throw baseballs, he shovels rocks at you, and he can even alert other enemies of your presence. If you look up jerk off in the dictionary, you'll find his picture at the top of the page. On top of the enemies, there are also plenty of secrets to discover. You may have noticed that certain levels on the map have different colors. The levels with yellow circles are your standard Mario ROMs, while the levels with red circles have secret exits. Technically, a few levels of Mario 3 had that, but Mario World goes all in on it. More often than not, finding a secret involves bringing a key to its corresponding keyhole. Sometimes you'll just need to find the extra goalpost, which is predominantly what you'll be searching for in ghost houses. The secret exits will usually lead to extra levels and other secrets like the Switch Palaces. Every once in a while, you'll find these colored outlines alongside other blocks, and if you want to solidify them, you need to locate the corresponding Switch Palace, with 4 of them in total. They all have a mini challenge that can net you some extra lives, and of course hitting the big switch at the end will make the corresponding colored blocks appear, with the yellow blocks containing mushrooms, the green blocks containing cape feathers, and the red and blue blocks have nothing. What the hell? Aside from using them for power-ups, they end up being useful footholds for some alternate pathways later in the game. And some of those alternate pathways may also lead you to finding these star warps that lead you to the Star World. These levels each have 2 exits, can also land you those multicolored Yoshis I talked about earlier. And with all the Star World levels beaten, you can head over to the Special Zone, where the hardest levels in the game lie in wait for those who wish to take the challenge. The hardest of the levels is ironically the second level, Tubular. Remember the P-Balloon I talked about earlier? It's this level that makes me want to take a sack full of puppies and get them out and give them tons of love. In this level, you need to maneuver around these volcano lotuses with the P-Balloon, all while charging Chuck finally remembers that he's a fucking football player. Do you think when Bowser hires more of them, they have to go through a football draft? Is there a Darklands Football League? I mean, this universe does have soccer, but okay, I'm getting off track. These level names are really weird too. It's all 80s slang words. I already mentioned Tubular, but there's also gnarly, way cool, awesome, groovy, mondo, outrageous, and funky. I sworn there was a few more, but anyway, once you beat all the levels, the game dubs you a super player and changes the season of the world map from summer to autumn. It's purely an aesthetic thing, but then you get into the levels and I gotta stop smoking pot. In order to reach the Valley of Bowser, we first need to swim through this ghost ship, which is actually one of the airships Mario took down in Mario 3. And soon after, the menacing cave opening reveals itself. The regular levels aren't too bad, but the fortress here has a hard-on for death traps, like, my god. Alright, I got the secret exit, and oh, Bowser has a back door. Why? Why would you give Mario and Luigi another way to get in? Especially since this back door cuts through half the level. King of Koopas? More like King of dipshits. Oh, got him. Anyway, no matter what entrance you go through, you'll find Bowser flying around in his clown copter. This game's fucking weird. This boss fight is actually pretty solid. He'll fly around in his clown car and occasionally chuck these Mecha Koopas at you that you can throw up to hit him with. He'll change his pattern up every 2 hits and even try to drop giant bowling balls on you. Seriously, where is he getting all the money for this shit? But with one last hit, Princess Peach is rescued, and it looks like Team Bowser is blasting off again. With Peach and the other Yoshis safe and sound, the story of Mario World reaches its end, and damn, what an adventure. If there's one game that is always touted as the best in the series, it's this game. Mario World did a lot of things right, and it was the best at those things for years. There were plenty of other 2D Mario games that came out in the decades after Mario World's release, but until recently, it stood tall as the definitive best, and there's a good reason for that. With fantastic gameplay, brilliant level design, and an infinite amount of charm that can make any grump smile, it stands tall as the best of the classic lineup. Even if a much better 2D Mario game is out now, I will always come back to Mario World knowing that I'm gonna have a good time.
While I was only planning on covering the main NES and Super Nintendo games for this video, I also thought it was important that we talk about some of the major re-releases that these games have had. I briefly mentioned Super Mario Bros. Deluxe earlier, but the first time that any of these games got any sort of re-release, it was in the form of Super Mario All-Stars for the Super Nintendo.
After production wrapped up on Super Mario Kart, there was a gap in Nintendo's release schedule as the sequel to Mario World, Yoshi's Island, was still in development. So Miyamoto got the grand idea to release a combo pack of the first 4 Mario games on the Famicom, and yes, I said 4, as they decided to include the lost levels so American players could experience it for the first time. I mean, the game is still shit, but it's awesome that they were thinking about accessibility to an unavailable title like that. Each game in the collection has been updated with 16-bit graphics, sounds, and they all have 4 different save slots, which makes lost levels that much more manageable. They all play pretty close to their original counterparts for the most part. The physics in Mario 1 and Lost Levels feel a bit better, but not by much. The updated graphics go a long way for games like Mario 1 and Lost Levels, but I always loved the look of the All-Stars version of Super Mario Bros. 3. If you're struggling with the NES versions of the original trilogy, I'd say go ahead and give these versions a shot. Literally a year after the first version of All-Stars was released, Nintendo re-released the game in the form of Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World. Aside from a 4th save slot and new sprites for Luigi in 2-player mode, it's the exact same game. Now, I don't want to go through every single re-release of All-Stars like, say, the Virtual Console version or the version that you can play on Nintendo Switch Online, but I do want to highlight the other ways that All-Stars was re-released, and that's with the Super Mario Advance games. I couldn't really find any development details with these titles, but all you really need to know is that they're updated versions of the All-Stars ports. The release order fucks me up though. Like Advance 1 is Mario 2, Advance 2 is Mario World, Advance 3 is Yoshi's Island of all games, and Advance 4 is Mario 3. Each of these games also suffer a bit from screen crunch, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was in Mario Bros. Deluxe. Mario 3 and Mario World also let you play as Luigi, complete with his different physics from Lost Levels. I've personally never been a big fan of Luigi's controls in the 2D games, so more often than not, I'm usually just playing as Mario. But if there's one game I'd recommend out of all of them, it's the advanced version of Mario Bros. 3, specifically the version you can find on Nintendo Switch Online. That version comes with the special e-reader levels built in, which contain remakes of levels from previous Mario games and levels with new mechanics and elements from the other Advance games. There are a ton of levels here, so if you already love Mario 3 and are looking for more of it, this version is the way to go.
And if I had to rank these games in some sort of tier list, well, let me see. Mario World is on top, Mario 3 in the spot below, Super Mario Bros. In the middle, Mario 2 USA below that, and then the Lost Levels at the very bottom. I think that's enough Mario talk for today, though. I think the next time I talk about any Mario games, it'll probably be either with the 2D games on the Game Boy or the new Super Mario Bros. Series. But if I'm going back to Mario in general, it'll probably be with the 3D games, so I hope you guys are looking forward to that whenever I get around to it. But in the meantime, a certain Blue Hedgehog has a racing game that's coming out in a few weeks, and I am very much looking forward to that. So the next time we meet, I'm going to be taking a look at Sonic Racing Crossworlds for the PlayStation 5, Xbox series of consoles, and the Nintendo Switch, as well as PC. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you all then.